From managing national accounts to influencing how major UK institutions think about hygiene, Helen Frost knows how to blend commercial strategy with a human touch. As Director of Corporate Accounts at Nationwide Hygiene Group, Helen has spent years helping clients across healthcare, education, and facilities management stay safe, compliant, and cost efficient when it comes to hygiene. But what makes her stand out isn't just her industry knowledge, it's her approach to relationships, leadership, and long-term success. Really happy to have you here, Helen. Thank you for joining me on the You've Got Sales podcast.
Oh, thanks. Hi, nice to be here.
So yeah, we were just saying off air there. I thought this would be really interesting to speak with you because you've got such a lovely, refreshing style when it comes to leadership and sales. And yeah, I think a lot of people can take a lot of lessons from you. So I thought it'd be really interesting to speak. But one thing I thought we'd start off with is I'd be really keen because you would have started sales in, what was it? When we discussed it, 2001? Was that?
Yeah, probably about 2002. Yeah. So
2002.
Yeah.
So how you've obviously seen sales change over that time. How has sales changed over the course of your career, and how much do you think, how you could fast forward for the same amount of time again moving forward, how do you think it's going to change even more so as we sort of go along?
I think it feels like, and I think this is everything, people don't have time. And I think the world's changed from when I joined. There was probably more resource in businesses, margins maybe weren't quite so tight for everyone. So, people could kind of sit. And now I think, as a salesperson, like customers, they want to just make it, they want you to make it really easy for them. And what you've got to do is try and understand, I guess, what they need really, really quickly. In a way that, people, you probably used to have more experts. I guess category managers perhaps had fewer categories. Now they're looking after like really broad, spectrum of things. So they can't be an expert in everything. So I think there's probably more pressure on, their suppliers to give them that info. So I think that'd be one big thing, I guess. And everyone's going to say this. Obviously, COVID changed things a little bit. I'm a big fan of face-to-face, and I used to be out, I would be out kind of 4 or 5 days a week before COVID. And then suddenly, like everybody, you were in this world where you were behind a screen. And I had a colleague previously, and she used to say to me, like, these teams and things would be brilliant for you. You're traveling around the country. You've got people around the country. And I was like, no, obviously, like COVID forced us to have it. And I was like, these are great. Like, wow, I really should have listened to her. She knew what she was talking about.
Forced you to adopt it.
It did force. And I think, like there's times where everybody, everyone who works in sales has done it. You've driven like 3 hours and you've gone into a meeting, and then it's like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And you think, God, I've spent 6 hours of my day for something. And that now being a Teams call is great. And I think having that opportunity to have, Teams calls perhaps prior to a meeting to understand what you're going into, understand better what you need to say.
More
exactly that. Yeah. Understanding whether you need to take more people. That's really good. I still think there's a huge benefit to being face-to-face, but I think that combination now of kind of going, it's a bit like if you have monthly reviews. For me, it's like having, maybe like one on Teams, one in person, and mixing that up a little bit.
Getting a balance with it.
Definitely. I think there's a danger in just sitting behind a screen because you need to go and see sites. And certainly, in what I do, it's really easy to make assumptions on paper, and then you go and you kind of go, oh, okay, thought this would be a good solution for you. Now I understand how your operation works and the geography of it or the complexity of it, and maybe need to suggest something different. So, but yeah, I think, that's changed. I think, there's a world now where I guess they're kind of talking about the younger generation, probably a little bit less face-to-face and a little bit more, not even Teams, but probably kind of email world and text world. And that's happening, a lot more. I think, even like things like WhatsApp, and WhatsApp group becoming something in sales that can be a really good resource. But yeah, it's just, and I'm behind, now.
Because you obviously, you like bringing in young people and training them and developing them. Have you, because I obviously recruit young people, and there is definitely more of a hesitation for the phone that I see. Do you see the same thing with face-to-face, like getting them to want to be face-to-face as well, or?
I think you're right, though. I think it's more the phone than probably face to face. And
Right.
I think weirdly, even Teams more. And I sort of relate to that a little bit. There's something, I guess like when you can see a face, it's okay. But yeah, I definitely think the phone is the biggest thing. But yeah, that
I
was,
was always scared of the phone for a really
yeah,
stupid
I was.
reason. Oh, were
I
you?
Yeah, and I still there are people in my world that I phone all the time, and I have
Yeah.
friends and I have customers. I would never phone. It's like I would
Yeah.
email them, I would send them a text, I would,
Yeah.
that's just the way. Yeah, it is.
I
But
think my fear came from because when growing up, in our house we had one of those old rotary phones. Like my mum insisted on having a
yeah,
fucking rotary phone, and whenever when back in the day you just get calls all the time on the house phone, like random stuff. The odd time where there was no one around and I had to pick it up, it scared the hell out of me. Like some salesperson or something when I was like 6 or 7. So I just avoided the phone at all
yeah.
costs. So then when it came into like working life, I was like, oh no, I got to use this
All
phone
the time.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's better. It's good that you know who's going to phone you and you've got that
Mm,
preview, but I don't know. Sometimes I think we're better off just having to answer everything.
yeah. I let it all go to voicemail and then
Yeah,
see who it is.
exactly.
If
Yeah.
it's important,
Do you know what I'm a big fan of at the moment is, this like AI on voicemail that's
yeah,
coming through, and you're
yeah.
getting that little
The
kind of
snippet.
preview message, and
Yeah.
they can be pretty wrong in what they're
Yeah, yeah,
understanding
yeah.
it as, but it does give you a good gist of, okay, that's a phone me now.
It's a real
Yeah.
person as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's and also on. I think it's on. I'm not sure if you've got it. Have you got an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they've released or releasing shortly. Like I'm not sure if you've seen this, but if someone calls you and it's an unknown number, it's a new number you've never seen before. They'll speak to an AI first to figure out what it is. So it should screen all of those automated
Oh,
messages for you. So
I've
that's
not.
great.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. But also, as a salesperson, like now, if you are doing a lot of phone work, you have another barrier you're going to have
Yeah.
to sort of get
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it the one way, but you're absolutely
Yeah,
right. Going the other way, it's then like you're getting interviewed by AI before you get to speak to someone.
this is it. So it's going to be a skill to like get past the AI
Yeah.
gatekeeper, you know. But overall, I think it is a good thing
Yeah.
to have something like that. It's no different from getting through a gatekeeper, like when we used to call through on literal landlines and through.
Yeah.
You just got to make sure you're giving something of value, right? That's worth discussing
Yeah,
with the
totally.
person. So it's interesting. Like one of the things I was going to ask you about when it comes to like younger people is when I recruit a lot of roles
Mhm.
for junior salespeople. I think one of the biggest challenges is a lot of these roles are pretty remote,
Yeah.
and these young salespeople, they're obviously not, they're not silver bullets. Like they need time and development
No.
and all of this stuff and patience. How do you sort of get that balance of bringing in a young person, but then I know a lot of what you do is in the office as well, but in Chesterfield, but how are you able to sort of make sure that young person is not alone in
Yeah.
that journey at the beginning?
I think it's a really good question. And when my first sort of sales role was in a big PLC, so there was a lot of people there, and I had a lot of people to learn from, and
Mm,
you learn from good people and you learn from bad people. So I had like that great exposure, and I had a lot of we had a lot of branches. I could go around different parts of the business, so there was a lot of things I could draw from. And I think remembering that the world I'm in now, we're quite a unique business, and we've got a relatively small head office team, but we've got this huge network that the group is, and we've got all these locations. We've got hundreds of
mm,
people with you know vast different degrees of experience. We've got people who are multi-generational, who know everything about everything in our industry, and then we've got other people who are younger. We've got their family members that are coming through, different people. So I think trying to kind of create that network for them is really good. I
mm,
think we've got I've got a relatively young team, so what's nice is now people coming in, they've got people to bounce off, and for me, that's them fitting with them is kind of as important, or if not more important, than fitting with me, because that's who they spend the time with. That's, I think the best people, are like the kids that ask a lot of questions, and they always say that, like a good salesperson's like a 4-year-old who's like, why? And so I think having that, but yeah, definitely creating those connections for them, definitely trying to, get them out and about in the business, finding kind of like-minded people, finding, manufacturers that we work with who, perhaps have people that are in a similar position that they can bounce off, or people who've been through that journey that can kind of share their wisdom as well.
And you try and do, I know you like you said, you famous Starbucks one-to-ones.
I'm anyone who knows me knows I am a huge fan of Starbucks. I have, it's kind of bordering obsession, I think, but
we spoke about it at length, and I can confirm I think it's beyond obsession at this point.
I have it as an interview question, and people are like, you've got to rein this in, because I kind of go, what's your favorite coffee? And you see people looking, going, I know there's a right or wrong answer to this, and you sort of feeling like scared. But I think there's it's great to spend time in an office, and I think that you talked earlier about remote working, and I think having time in that office, listening to people, building relationship with your colleagues is really, particularly if you're newer and younger, is really, really beneficial. But I also, for me, like one-to-ones, I guess because of the job I've done, I've always had like remote people. So I've often ended up being out and about with them, seeing customers, and then we've done one-to-ones out on the road. And I think sometimes it can be more relaxed. It can be a little bit more honest, maybe, when, when you're in the office, you're in that, I'm not sure who's walking past, I'm not sure who's listening. Whereas something about being, in a Starbucks is, Starbucks is my happy place. It makes everyone relax. But you do kind of have that, like, look, this is bothering me. And that's my kind of view is, I've had good managers who've taught me of that, just be honest, just be honest about everything. If you don't understand, tell me you don't understand. And that can be easier said than done. But I think
you also have to. You also don't realize, at least I didn't until start working remotely. Almost all the things I had learned weren't always necessary. Obviously, you make mistakes and you learn from the mistakes. That's how mostly I learned everything. But the other things that I had learned had come from observing people do the thing, rather than it being trained to me. There was some training bits and reading on videos, whatever, but most of it was just listening or going out on the meeting and seeing how they do an opener, how they close, or whatever it might be. That's the stuff that's like sticky. Like you see it in real time happen. And I do feel sorry for a lot of young, not just salespeople, but people in anywhere, because they think I understand, a lot of them want remote, and I understand why they want it. But they are then at a massive disadvantage for their own development without having that ability to observe the good and the bad and everything in between. And I see it with young people's profiles all the time. They jump from job to job to job. There's just 5 jobs in the last 2 years. They're all remote. And it's like they just have had no stickiness to learn anything, and they're out there on their own, not knowing what to do, and they're not aware of it because they've never had it before. So it's very difficult for them. I think I'd really struggle if I was in that.
And you're right. And I even, what the best thing I found about being a manager was that I got to go out with everyone. So I got to kind of pick the best of, if I was going out with like 8 team members, I got to pick something from 8 people. Like, and I was sitting in, a call with one person, and well, I love the way they do this, and I love this style of them, and, that's a really nice touch. So I think you're right. You end up, you're this kind of collage of the best bit, in an ideal world, the best bits that you've seen from people. And the fewer people you have in the world, the fewer people you have to learn from and bounce off. So
and sometimes it's just a phrase, or
absolutely,
it's a small tiny thing
you
pick up from it. You're like, damn,
that's really nice. Like, you're like that. And I'm awful, and everyone who works with me knows, I go to listen, and I can't help myself. I'm a talker, so I
go in.
The small times I do manage to listen, I think you do, and you see things and you kind of go, oh yeah, that really works, or sometimes you go, oh, I've told them to do that, but actually that didn't land at all, or actually the terminology we're using is our company's terminology, but in front of the customer that that maybe isn't the right way to say it or the right way to do it.
Mm.
Yeah. But being out and about is like, that's where I've been lucky to learn. And I think you're right, giving people, giving everyone that exposure is great.
It is. I mean, when I spoke with a sales trainer a few months ago, and he I love the way he put a sales team, because he was talking about a team. Typically we think of a team and like a sports team, right? That's how people would sort of think about it. But when he spoke about salespeople specifically, is that, okay, we've got a shared goal, we do, but really we're the lone wolf in a way, and not so you step on other people's feet, but you have your own target, to reach, which is different from a sports team, because that is a shared goal always in a sports team. So a lot of people go into training teams kind of like a sports team, and he was saying it doesn't translate that well. But the way he likes to do it is he likes to think of it like a practice. So whether it's like a martial art or something, because martial art isn't a team sport, but what you do get from a martial art is that you practice with others who are doing what you're doing, and you're learning from them by doing the thing with them. So, and that's exactly what it's like. Or if you're a doctor's practice, or it doesn't matter what type of practice it is, he sees it as more of a practice. And I really love how he sort of framed that, because I think we do learn the sticky stuff from other people like that. And if you don't have that sort of practice, if you can't do a martial art from your bedroom on your own.
No.
Like, you can learn about it all you like, but you've got to go and do the thing, see it and experience it, and then pick up those little things from people who are better than you.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. And I'm definitely learned from doing, and I've realised this, that it's a bit like, if like a manufacturer sort of talking to us about a product, the best way I learn is almost seeing them in front of a customer with it, because the customer will ask questions that I don't necessarily think of asking, or, even, and if you've been shown it in a big group of people might ask those questions and you bounce off. But the more real life things are for me, the more I kind of take away from it, even just everything. It's like, give me a real life situation. I'm like, okay, that now I can apply it. Now I can understand it.
Yeah. That's what makes it stick in your brain, doesn't it? And with what would you say are some of your like core pillars of leadership for you?
I am absolutely, and for me, it's about trust and openness. And I think, I'm, there's loads of things I do, badly, and there's loads of things I know I don't do enough of. I know I don't do well enough, but I hope that the majority of people that have worked for me before, work with me now, I will always have their back. If I'm them to the business, if I'm with a customer, I will absolutely, I will always defend them. I will never try and, take credit for what people have done. I will never try and throw them under the bus. It's absolutely about that kind of, they can trust that I'm there for them. But I think, it's having that, just that openness and honesty. I'm not going to judge, if it's like, it's across the spectrum. So, sales is not a 9 to 5 job. It's sometimes you have to be somewhere at, at a horrific time of the morning, or you're getting home really late at night. But, the flip side is, in most worlds, you do have a degree of flexibility, and you have flexibility about your calendar. So I'm like, just tell me, if you need time somewhere, just tell me honestly. You don't need to tell me you're going to the dentist. If you're going, if it's something that just tell me where you are, and that's fine. We can work with it, because I know I'm getting more from you. So let's make it that kind of give and take relationship. But also kind of in work, if you've not done something or you don't understand something, let's just talk about it. If something doesn't feel right the way we're doing it, I've made mistakes. We've all done it. We've all sent the wrong thing to the customer. We've all sent files that just own it. There's no need to make up excuses about it. There's no need to try and blame someone else. It's just like, oh God, I've dropped the ball on this. I've totally forgotten on this. I think I've sent them the cost price by accident. All of those things that I think anyone who's been in sales has done. Oh, yeah. It's like, that's fine, and it's like, there's probably nothing that they've done that I've not done at some point anyway. So it's like, we'll just own it together, and, Yeah,
it's very true. It's, I always like the idea of like, you see some companies do like, I know it's not maybe the best word for it, but they do like failure Fridays where they have a meeting and they all talk about the things that they effed up in the week. And it's like, whoever had the biggest F up gets a
Yeah.
prize, you know, because that's how you learn the stuff. And it's also like, you can't be afraid to make mistakes. Otherwise you just wouldn't get anything, you wouldn't get anything done, would you?
I don't like giving bad news, I really don't. And I think, where I've been on the journey is, you have to, and what we deliver thousands of, everywhere I've worked, we've delivered thousands of deliveries a day. No one is getting that perfect. And sometimes things happen, sometimes it's my fault. Sometimes it's, something's gone wrong in the business. It's, there's been a traffic accident, a van can't get there. Something's happened, manufacturing the product. And, there is nothing worse than telling a customer that they're not going to get something that they really need. But, I think, over time it is that whole like, just own it, and it's so obvious, but it is just like, absolute transparency is definitely the best way. Or something's gone wrong, something's happened, how can we make it better? Can we come up with a solution?
Yeah, I always like trying to have a radical honesty approach is always the best, because if you don't, it's going to come, the customers know as well, don't they? They'd rather you just hold your hand up and say, look, this is happening, rather than you give them the wrong expectation.
Yeah, but likewise, I think I would also rather that, like, if a customer phoned me and went, oh, I've forgotten to place the order, I need your help, absolutely fine, and we've all had it where customers are like, well, I sent it, and you're like, and they're trying to kind of blame, and you're like, and sometimes that might have happened, but there's definitely times where it's like, just phone me, phone us and ask for help. Everybody wants to help. Everyone's, no one wakes up in the morning not coming to work to, to be difficult, to cause problems. So,
for sure. So, like you say, trust is a big thing for you. Honesty and transparency, openness, communication. Let's talk about it. Were those things, does that naturally come to you? Is that from training? Is that from learning from other leaders? Probably a little bit of everything, but where did it come from?
Everything. And I think, it's not being, throwing out ideas and throwing out different things. And, I joined, I remember when I became, a branch manager, and I was, in this team of really strong, experienced people who, I was like totally intimidated by, and I'd sort of sit there going, gosh, and actually, ironically, I still work with one of them now, and her and I, for quite a while, I was like, gosh, I'm not going to this person. I'm totally intimidated by them. They were kind of looking at me going, oh, she's coming young and, maybe has more qualifications and thinks that, and actually by not asking more for help, it probably made it look like I was not, didn't think I needed it. And I think that was a lesson for me. And, what we've realized is that absolutely, her and I are yin and yang, and it's brilliant because, we can work together. But yeah, definitely it's that lesson of don't be afraid to, to ask for help. Don't be afraid to put your hand up, because actually I think most people quite like being asked to help them. It's quite a compliment, isn't it, where people go, can I ask your advice? Could you come and help me?
Definitely. It definitely is. I think you get your ego and pride gets in the way, doesn't it? You don't want to look like an idiot. But it's definitely the best way to do it. Had you had any, when you look back at some of the leadership that you had, what was some of the best advice you were given for leadership? And likewise, what was some of the worst that you'd maybe seen, or worst advice?
Where probably my best people who've led me, the best ones have been almost like who know who I am, who I can be myself with, who, kind of encourage that, that transparency and that, but also, are just like, this is who you are and it's okay. I like you said about training courses, I went on one, and I think sometimes you go on courses that talk about, these are your strengths and weaknesses, and you need to work on your weaknesses and you need to balance. And that's true to a point. But we had a guy he went, no one is good at everything. Actually, if you are AAA rated at something, you should be doing that as much as you possibly can do in your day, and find other people and surround yourself with other people who can do that stuff instead of trying to do everything well. you know, find your skill to a point. And, you know, if the best thing you do is, you know, being out doing, you know, this part of sales, you know, and it's not always possible, but if you can be in a business or if you can be in a team where you can kind of have that division of tasks and division of
Mm,
responsibility to go, this isn't, you know, that is not my bag, you know,
mm,
that level, you know, that is absolutely, you know, my colleague's bag. She does that brilliantly. I'll go and do
mm.
this well, and embrace it.
That's always an interesting one because from a recruitment perspective, I've seen over the years when people hire, they like to hire most of the time what they already have, and because it makes them more comfortable, I guess. It just
Yeah.
people like to recruit in their own self-image a lot of times anyway, but they look at the team and go, okay, that fits in what the team. It's more of what we've already got, and you're thinking that's not what you want. You want the diversity of ideas and thought and skills, don't you?
Yeah.
If everyone had the same thing, then great. That one thing is going to get done, but everything else is going to be a
Yeah.
little bit, haphazard. So, but I think people get a bit uncomfortable with things that they don't know
Yeah.
or don't understand, especially if it's not like themselves. If you have
Yeah.
a really if you have a really extroverted person
Mm,
and you give them a really very introverted person, they're like, oh, well,
mm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. That person could be amazing at some other things that you are
Yeah.
totally horrendous at.
And you're right. And in a team, actually, too many similar people are just going to clash. So if you've
Mm,
got that nice balance, then you kind of go, this is great because people complement each other. And,
mm.
you know, it's not like, gosh, someone, you know, I'm the best at this and someone is trying to take that from me. It's almost like, okay, they're going to be the best at this and they're going to be the best at this. And we can kind of celebrate that together.
Yeah, that's what we always try and. So, like, have you thought about this? Like for the have you thought about
Mm.
this, that, and the other? Um, because I think it just comes out of not being a bit uncomfortable with things that you don't understand, and I understand that. Like, I've done that myself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I always automatically gravitate to people who are like me, and whereas I probably shouldn't when it's my business.
And I sometimes, when I interview people, I kind of think, gosh, you know, I might have to be in the car with them for sort of 10 hours
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
you know, could I, you know, would I
I've
be
been in
okay?
the
Would we be
trenches
okay?
all
You know, if we
night.
could work on the
Yeah,
M40 for like, you know, 2 hours, you know, extra.
yeah,
Could I chat to them? Can we make conversation? Can, you know,
yeah.
and but I think you can be totally different and still have that, you know, you can
Oh
still have
yeah,
common values, but just have different skills, different approach to, you know, work, different.
definitely, for
Mm,
sure. We all have friends that are like, oh, our friends aren't like us.
yeah.
Like, I've got the quiet friend, I've got the really loud friend, I've got
Mm.
the annoying friend. But I would want to be with them in the car for 10 hours.
Yeah. Because
So
you merge together and
you do.
you need that person to bring the energy and person to bring the, like you say about that group of friends, you need, you know, you need the person who makes sure it gets booked. You know,
The
you need
organised
the person
one.
who,
It's
you
not
know, the
me.
person
It's
who's got
not
the
me.
energy. Well, you need the person who's got the energy to go, we need to get together. This needs to happen. Let's all go out.
Mm,
But then you need the person who actually does logistics side of it to go, okay, but we need to book a restaurant and we need to
yeah.
book, you know, an accommodation, or are we going to get a food delivery done?
Yeah,
Um,
totally. And then you've got the person who's, once it gets a bit too late, they're like, maybe I'm going to go back. And a couple of others might go back with
yeah,
them. And then you've got the other one who just keeps going. Then you're like,
yeah,
oh, geez.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's very interesting. I mean, with, um, I think with a lot of leadership that I have when I speak to sales
Mm,
guys, it's funny. Out of all, we do like a little poll and a study as much as we can. We try and figure out how people are thinking and feeling.
mm,
And we did one thing we did ages ago is we took all from our CRM, we had all the reasons why people were leaving their jobs, and we just
yeah,
collated it into one just to see what it was. And for sales, you naturally think that money is the main reason why people leave, but money was like seventh on the list. It's
yeah,
actually not something you hear about that often, unless a company's just not paying bonuses and commission. Then that becomes very frustrating for people. But the actual money itself is not usually it. Number one on the lists was micromanagement
mhm,
by like almost 60%. That was the main thing. And even for people who had jobs which they loved, were paid well, cool company, they had absolutely everything.
yeah,
But the one thing they had was a real heavy micromanagement. it completely sours the whole
Yeah.
rest of it.
And you're right. And I think that sort of ties in with, you and I spoke about the importance of creativity and being able to input into it. You do a job and you spend a lot of time working, and having that, you want to feel like you can make a difference. And I think generally what micromanagement comes with is constraint and restrictions. And, for me, it wasn't, where my frustrations have been in the past hasn't necessarily been like the manager, but it's been, there's a process and you can't change this and you can't do something, but you want to do things that have positive impacts. And, most salespeople care, and you don't kind of get up with, you want to make things better. You want to make a difference. You want, you want to make a sale, but you want to do something because it's the right thing to do and creates that trust and that. So I think that micromanagement totally ties into that control and constraints of, you're stopping me doing my job well, and whether that's taking away time, whether that's, forcing people into the wrong behaviors.
Yeah, I had another sales trainer on, and he said it's just the corporate version of emotional insecurity. And I thought, yeah, that's really what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for a lot. I think a lot of people don't mean to. Obviously, if you're in a company that's very red tape heavy, like that's a corporate structure that's making it that way, and that's frustrating. But companies that don't have that, and it's the manager themselves who's doing it, I think a lot of the time they don't mean to do it, and that's kind of how it becomes so difficult for them to change it, because in their mind they're trying to help people. Or maybe they're feeling like they're under pressure, so they're having to control things.
And that's what how they've been treated. So it's like a top-down sort of.
Top-down. It's like snowballs down to everybody else, doesn't it? I don't think a lot of people go into it like, I'm just not going to give people any control. I don't think many have that. But then that makes it a lot harder for people to, I think, be self-aware of that they're doing it. Because in their mind they're like, I'm helping.
Yes, and I think that there are some people. I am quite hands off. I'm there, but I'm not. I'm not sort of what you're doing, where you go, and what you do. I prefer that to kind of come organically. I prefer for it to be I'm doing this and I'm going there, not tell me where you're doing, fill in a form where you're going. But it's some people, I think, probably do need a little bit more structure, and it's just finding that sweet spot of, some people, they want that to-do list and they want, a more prescriptive, I want you to go here, I want you to do this.
Especially if they're more junior too. If they don't understand where they're at. Yeah. I think the key with that is that, again, from a recruiter's perspective, is the main thing is just you're transparent with what it's going to look like. So people understand how it's going to go down. Like the expectations of it. I think when I've had people, it doesn't happen very often. It's happened a couple of times, but I'll talk to a manager about how they lead, because I just, I want to let the candidates know if that's for them or not, and I'd rather than they know now than later down the line. And I think they're worried about coming across in the wrong way, because they are a bit more like that, and they don't want to say it because it's got negative connotation to it. So then someone starts and it's a problem. And it's like, in reality, if you're just transparent about it, you're going to get the people who actually do want that. And some people do want that. I had a candidate a few weeks ago who turned down a role because it had too much freedom in it. She was like, I need to be kind of held on rails a bit. And she's cool with that, totally cool with that. So if you can just get that message out there straight away, you're going to solve a lot of problems later. But I think, people just, they don't want to seem like it's a negative thing. Therefore, they don't really say it. So I think that's where the problem lies with it. If we're just open and honest about it.
Yeah. And I think and it happens both ways. Absolutely. I think, and it's difficult, sometimes when you're looking for a job, people are very keen to get a job, and it's easy to perhaps rush into that'll do,
Oh, yeah, totally.
And I guess a big, what I really liked in our conversations was, you're very much around matching for the long term, not, it's not about just getting scores, of, well, I've placed person, I've placed that person, I've placed that person. It's, you want to create things that work for both parties. You want to create, you want to put people who are looking for jobs in the right role, people are looking for staff, the right people, and create that, hopefully really long-term relationships both ways.
Absolutely. It works for everybody.
Yeah.
It works for everyone if you do it that way. But it's for me, I'm a real stickler for trying to do it right. Like I'm just a bit OCD about trying to get it done perfect, which you can never do. But
No.
the closer you can get it to be done right, the less problems you're going to have later. And there's less problems for you. There's going to be less problems for me. Less problems for them. And you can't, when it comes to people, you can't treat it in a transactional manner. People are not transactional. People are complicated. People do weird stuff.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Businesses change, even,
things change.
Things can happen that, it's just sort of anticipating. If you're like, everything's going to stay exactly the same, there's probably really big organizations where that's the case, but in most places, it's the more kind of honest we can be about, this could happen, really great stuff could happen, which might, mean this. And
it's all about radical honesty with it. And it's from the first moment, it's from the job description all the way through to the conversation with me and you. And that only comes from you being honest. Because if you're holding cards away, I can't possibly articulate it and look out for it. And what I'm trying to do is I actually want to turn off 99% of people. Like I don't want 99% of people. I want the 1% of people who are right for this right now.
Yeah.
And this opportunity ain't going to be right for a lot of people. Brilliant. I'd rather figure out that right today than later on down the line. But it will be the right thing for the right person.
Yeah.
I can only do that if I've got the right information, And I think there again, it doesn't happen very often, but I meet the occasional business or company they'll just keep the cards too close to their chest with everything. It's like, well, I can't really deliver as well if I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And by the way, if everything's on fire, that's fine. The amount of, because
that's to me,
fireman,
that would excite me. If you were searching for me, I'm like, if you went, this place is running like absolute clockwork.
Boring.
Every process is perfectly refined. I'd be like, that is not for me. Like,
exactly.
It's like, give me somewhere where it's like they've got challenges. They want someone in with ideas. You want to make a difference. It's like you're absolutely right. It's like that would totally excite me much more than it would turn me off.
Totally. Firemen are attracted to houses on fire.
Yeah.
But what they don't like is when something's on fire and you don't tell them it is.
Yeah.
Then they haven't got their gear on.
Like you say, you're putting the wrong person in there.
Exactly. Or you just haven't been honest and upfront with it. So that's why the radical honesty works, because there's always a home for everybody, and that person wants whatever you're doing, even if even if the company's about to go under, someone will look at that and be like, I can fix it. I can save it. Not everybody, but there'll be one person out there who.
I say this about my manager. He thrives under. When things go wrong, that is him at his best. Absolutely.
Yeah. You get people who are fantastic in those situations. And what you don't want is somebody who crumbles, who would be better in a much different situation. That's completely fine. It's all just about being honest with that situation up front completely. With one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, obviously you got a young team, business is growing.
A lot of people are young compared to me now, I've realised. I was with a friend this week and we were saying, we look at people in their 20s and and you're like, oh yeah, they probably look at me like a peer, and then they're like, oh yeah, and you kind of go, oh no, I think you look at me like your parents' age, and it's like, oh okay, yeah, there's a real different view going on here.
I know, and I train jiu-jitsu, and most of I'm 35 next month, and there's kids there who are wrestling with me, they're 16, and I'm like, God,
yeah,
that's ridiculous. I'm more than old enough to be their dad, and they're talking to me about stuff that I don't understand and know. I'm like, I'm so out of touch with this. I'm completely, it's gone now. It's gone completely. But with a young team and stuff like that, we're obviously in a big moment of change at the moment. Like, how do you see sales changing over the next 5-10 years? What do you think are going to be some of the big things?
I'm seeing stuff saying, things are going to be more, people sitting behind computers, decisions being made, transactionally, less. I think, you see, certainly we see in public sector in our world, a lot of decisions are made. It's a portal and you do a tender and, it's on a price, or it's on how you've answered a response to a question, and whether you've, we had something recently where two trusts tendered business together. And so it was the same questions, but different trusts scored questions. So we were kind of getting like 10 out of 10 on one, and then 7 out of 10. You're going, but we've written the same response here. And it was like, gosh, that, and it might be that what one was looking for was slightly different, but, it almost felt like, gosh, they've interpreted that, how, the 10 out of 10 as we meant it, what's happened. And I think that really worried me, because it was like, gosh, they're making huge decisions, and it's public money that they're making huge decisions on. And in our world, we supply consumables. It's, this is not like one piece of equipment that goes in and you walk away. This is so relationship based. The cost is not the cost of a product. The cost is, not letting somebody down, being trusted, making sure that when you say things are going to be delivered, they're getting delivered, making sure that the product that they've tendered, and it's, and having a salesperson or a sales team that are engaged during the course of that contract, that are helping driving savings, that are helping making things happen. And the fact that decisions, in the public sector for sure are getting made absolutely based on a spreadsheet is, that's
you
really...
wouldn't make that in your life for the smallest decision. Like, you don't make that when you go dating.
No, yeah, that's it.
Be like, yeah, gonna marry him.
Yeah, that's right.
Have a Tinder profile. Do you know what I mean?
But you're so right. That's exactly what it is. So I think, I hope that people realise that's not the way forward, but I worry that it is. I think that big organisations, big FMs are under, they're under pressure on, financial pressure, but there's so many important things, there's so much importance about using SMEs, and, what SMEs give companies is really unique. And it's, I worry when I see kind of big companies trying to consolidate things into, and perhaps losing that, it is, what am I getting from that, local business, or what am I getting from that small, what innovation am I going to be missing out on? What, added value am I going to get? What, small businesses, they're the ones that it's easy when something goes wrong on a Friday afternoon. They go, yeah, I can keep this site open. It's my business. I can open it up at the weekend to solve something. And I think that, that transactional world concerns me. But then you sort of see, we're having the conversation about not so much in our work life, but in, you see people are liking farm shops, and people are liking, homemade things, and going back to using a butcher's, or going back to using, not, and I don't know whether that will drive, the same thing happening. And maybe it will happen a little bit in the business world as well. But
I think so.
Secondary.
I think people, especially with AI and AI and automation, only is going to add to the transactional nature of all of this stuff. But I think we cry out for more authenticity than ever before. Like, authentic things really mean a lot now. Like, even if you get a letter in the post, like 20 years ago, you're like, now you're like, Jesus, a letter, like, for me?
And you get something real, not like a bill.
A
And you're
real
like,
thing.
oh, and it's a not,
And the same for, that's why it's like you say, what you do is keep a really nice balance about in person and then teams, because like, you're going to deliver such a better service by being able to be there in person, and that relationship, doesn't matter what anyone says, is going to be much stronger than when you shook that person's hand and look them in the eye. You just have a stronger connection with somebody after that. So I think we're going to really gravitate more towards a lot of the stuff. I actually think that a lot of things, even just like, I think a lot more meetings and events will happen as goes on, because we're just crying out for more of that.
I really hope so. And I think you say the in-person thing, for me, the in-person bit's really important. But what I've realised is when I go and see someone, and then you're like in the car for a little bit, you think about the meeting and you kind of think about what they've said, what their challenges are. And that to me is my creative time. That's when I'm leaving going, oh, how could I present what they're looking for? How could I, who could I phone about that problem? Who can I kind of draw from my network? And I think when you have that call behind a computer, you come off and you either go straight into the next call or you just open your emails and you go straight into your emails. So
totally.
it's that double whammy of having the meeting, but having time on a train time and just, you can't be, someone said to me, and she was pointing out, you can't be productive and creative at the same time. It's almost like two distinct skills. So it's like, make time and I'll give, my boss is actually very good at this. He's like, absolutely make time in your diary to go and sit and think about your world and think about what you're responsible for. And it's so hard to do, and it's so hard when you
still fill that time. You'll fill it with a podcast. You'll fill it with scrolling on your phone.
Could come off, from you now. And, the reality is, I could sit there and go, right, I'm going to have a couple of hours just going, what are all my challenges? What my customers' challenges. But the chances are I'll just open my emails and go, oh, yeah, I need to phone them back. Oh, I need to do this. I need to get that report out to them. And you kind of get sucked back into that world.
I think it's one of the hardest things to do, just because of the amount of distraction that we have. There's always something to do, isn't there?
Yeah. But there's always going to be. And it's just understanding what actually is the priority. Yeah.
Totally. I always, in my diary in front of me, which I don't always stick to, my to-do list, I've got go for a walk 15 minutes around the block. It's always in there. I don't always get to do it, but when you do it, best ideas come from that time.
Absolutely. And I don't think you get any less, it's like, I always say my productivity, the day before I'm going on holiday is outstanding because, you have that gosh, I've got to get this stuff done. I'm going to be away for 2 weeks. So, you're filing stuff to colleagues going, actually, can you pick this up for me? I could have sent that to them 5-6 days ago asking for help, but it's like, it's almost the pressure of, gosh, I've realized I'm not going to get it done. Or you just get, and I think having less, putting those tighter time pressures around yourself to go, actually, I'm going to work till that time. Then I'm going to go for a walk.
Yeah.
We'll get the same amount of work done anyway.
God, if we forced ourselves to do that, imagine how much better you'd be. You just would.
We had a speaker at our conference last year, and what he said was, if someone was to do your job for like a month, how would they do it better than you? And it was like that way of looking at it, of going, and you kind of go, oh, okay, yeah. They'd probably go, why are you doing this? Why are you doing so much? A lot of things that came through were, why are you doing that? Why aren't you letting other people do it? Those were sort of common elements.
You don't know. You just get in your own way, don't you? Get in your own head, and it's difficult to have that sort of awareness or look at it from a third-person perspective, isn't it? Sometimes it's even just as simple, like, do you treat yourself how you treat your best friend? That's just a more general thing. And most people don't. They're really horrible to themselves. Like, I'd never treat my friends like how I treat myself sometimes. But I don't know what it is. We're wired to be like that. But I thought to close out would be really interesting. You've obviously got some really awesome stuff going on at Nationwide Hygiene Group at the moment.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just give you just a few minutes just to talk about some of the awesome stuff at Nationwide, some of the big successes, some of the cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, I think, I like I said, I spent a lot of time in the PLC world, which was taught me so much and worked with some great people. But I think the Nationwide, that I have never known people who, they are so customer centric. And because that is from the business owner, that is throughout their business. It's like, you meet the drivers, you meet the office stuff. There is, phenomenal, like, just the kind of outlook on what they're there to do. They're there to do the right thing. And there's, we always say no one in our world doesn't, even if they do something which goes, maybe isn't what we've asked to do, or they've done something, every single thing they've done is for the good of the customer. It's because they feel it's the right thing to do. If it's like, oh, well, we took that delivery out to them today, and it was like, oh, it would have been fine to wait till they were like, but we just wanted to get it there for them. There is so customer centric. And I think for us, it's, from a national account perspective, what we've worked really hard at over, I've been there 5 years and a couple of colleagues have been there sort of similar amounts of time, is bringing that great, great process, great ways of working that exist in the PLC world that national business needs, that customers need, they need to know what's going on. They need that one point of contact. They need that consolidated go-to person, go-to team. But what we've enabled, through technology, and this is where technology has been a great aid, is to kind of bring all these unique businesses together and bring everything that's great locally, but into having that, branch network, enabling us to have, one way of working, to make sure that there is absolutely that, we've got visibility through the supply chain in a way that, 10 years ago probably didn't exist. So I think that for me, we're in a really exciting step. I'm very fortunate. I've got really great customers, and, we've been lucky, and we've worked really hard as well to retain those customers over the years. So, the longer you work with people, the nicer it gets, because you can put longer term strategies in, and you can invest in things and help, those customers that are wanting to make a difference in that world. And, I spent yesterday, I had like a sustainability day, and, we were working about, how can we make, things better? Because how can we, in our area and, in our sphere of influence, what can we do to make things, to help make people make right decisions, to help reduce our impact, to help just do things that are good for the world. And so, yeah.
Awesome. No, it's since we first met a couple of weeks ago, I love your style. It's so refreshing, and I know there's people in your team that have gone on to be successful, that you helped develop and grow, and given them the time to do that. And you obviously got some big ambitions as a business to take on some of the big boys that are out there, which is awesome, because I think that's a really cool place to be
in. I think we're absolutely, we've got all those mechanisms in place now to be that provider.
Yeah. Because it's like, there's like you've said, there's some of those big PLCs that great at a lot of things, not so great at other things.
Yeah.
And if you're in your position where you can offer something completely different, more service led, that can really make big improvements for customers, I think that's just a really cool place to be. Because you kind of, I like a good underdog story. You want to topple down some of the big boys, don't you? So I think that's awesome. But no, thank you so much for your time, Helen. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Likewise, appreciate it.
We'll do it again soon.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thanks, David.